But guys, thank you all so much for joining me, and let's get into this first story from gamesindustry.biz. This is a very good website, by the way. If you'll notice on the channel a lot, I pick from a lot of the same places. It's because these are places that I've kind of looked over, and I've also seen which other YouTubers use them as sources, the trusted guys, and gamesindustry.biz is one of the more trusted ones. I'm not saying they're totally trustworthy because obviously I can't vet them 100%, but so if you guys start seeing a lot of ones that just keep popping up, it's because I really only use like 6 sources because some of like I'm not going to read Eurogamer. Eurogamer just makes crap up. But anyway, former Assassin's Creed director Alexandra Amancio explains how to fix AAA development. This, and I kind of read the subtitle, not the title, the article title, whatever. Subtitle. All right. At DevCon Lisbon. Gosh, that's such a British name.
Is there a movie with that?
Probably. I don't know. It's over in Europe land. We kicked Europe land out of here a few hundred years ago. Anyway, in November, Alexandra Amancio gave a presentation entitled From AAA to Ashes, Why the Future Belongs to the Bold. Whoa! Okay, that is a baller title. That should be a documentary title. And this was a you wasted this on a PowerPoint? He's European, whatever. I guess we can only give them so much credit. Okay. He didn't mince his words in the talk's descriptions. After a decade of overexpansion, studio bloat, and risk-averse thinking, which comes from investors, that's where the risk-averse thinking comes from. We're now living through the fallout, mass layoffs, creative stagnation, and a growing disconnect between developers and the games they make. Somewhat along the way, we stopped chasing greatness and started chasing metrics. We prioritized politics over craft, comfort over challenge, and content pipelines over originality. In sum, the Western games industry is in crisis. Dude! I don't even know who this man's is, but I think I love him. Babe, am I allowed to love him? She says she doesn't care, so I can love him. So Amancio says Amancio is currently a senior vice president of world building and IP strategy at Fun Plus. Never heard of that. But previously he was a creative director of Assassin's Creed Revelations and Assassin's Creed Unity. So we're going back to the good ones. The future belongs to the bald? Hey, I'm cool. Oh, that's funny. Did I say bald? I thought I said bold. So he knows a thing or two about running huge productions with hundreds of people and where things need to improve. Following his talk, GamesIndustry.biz caught up with Amancio to find out what he thinks needs to be done to solve the current crisis in AAA game development. So how do you fix AAA game development? What's the secret? Okay, this is what I want to know. This is what I actually clicked on this article for, so I really hope he gives it here and he doesn't bury the lead. It says, I think the secret is asking the question. I've had many discussions with many people across different scales of games and many different genres. And the thing that everybody agrees on is that making a game is tough. There's a thing called the wicked problem that describes a kind of problem where there's many different potential inputs, and what happens in the process is inherently variable. So when you actually solve that problem and you have an output, it is mathematically impossible to backtrack and figure out, this is interesting, and figure out whether the process was the most efficient one and whether you get to the best result. I have never thought about that before. That is hugely insightful. Basically, you're creating a game. You're probably using a game engine of some kind. Maybe your own proprietary game engine, especially back then. And now, in order to solve this problem, to make your game just function, and it works really well. But it's like, can you actually reproduce that the next time around? Because is it even mathematically quantifiable to be able to say that, yes, this is the most efficient way to do it? And then by trying to do that, does it make the next game worse or better? I've never even thought about that. Okay, I learned something new. This is called the wicked problem. I learned something new tonight. Okay. I am a big dum-dum. I did not know this before. This is fantastic. Making a game falls into the category, and so it's normal that we are constantly struggling. Okay. The other thing is the word video game is a very broad term. It can cover anything from mobile card games to a large open world. So I think there's a different solution for different scales and different types of games. I think it's more about finding choke points where you can collapse the complexity and then have these floodgates that only let the flow go one way. And you make sure that you go through them very methodically. Okay, so you've got to be diligent here. All right, you've worked on Assassin's Creed franchise, and I know there are hundreds of people working in each title in the series. Is there any way to avoid that? Do you always have to have so many people making each games? He says, I think we do, and I don't think we do, and I don't think it's tenable. There's a theory that says whenever humans create something that surpasses 100 people, it completely changes the dynamic of it. As soon as you surpass that ratio of management to people working on the game, explodes. You start having a very management-heavy structure. You need to have people to coordinate the people coordinating. Okay, so this is basically when you start getting middle management. Yeah, something that a lot of AAA studios mistakenly do, or certainly did in the past, is think that you can solve a problem by throwing people at it. By adding people to a problem stagnates the people that were already being efficient on it. It just creates a lot of variable noise. So I think the future lies in smaller teams. I think there's stuff we can learn from other industries. The film industries have evolved into coalesced core teams in which each person is responsible for putting together a crew to help them on a project. The crew is typically built for that project. It's a temporary crew, although of course people get the people they want to work with long term. They have their go-to people for various kinds of projects. This is really cool. Since its inception, I think that the gaming industry has treated itself as being a part of the software industry, but is kind of a weird hybrid. I think the future lies in taking that learning from the film industry, where you have core teams that are complemented with either outsourcing or with co-devs for specific needs. You get the right crew for the right project at the right time. So this is a long interview. I'm going to cut this here. I think this is I think this guy has a lot of insightful stuff. I can leave the link for this down in the description below when I actually cut this into a video. I think him saying that there's a wicked problem. It's like every game kind of has its own issues and every game kind of has its problems. And when you solve for those problems, they might not be necessarily the most mathematically efficient to do in the next game. But also, you're in a team of like hundreds of people, so everybody needs to just do what they know. There's no time to actually figure out mathematical efficiency. And he was kind of talking about once you blow up over a certain team size, now you've got managers who need to manage the managers who are trying to manage the managers. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a management position, but there's always a joke is that, okay, we need to have a meeting about when we're going to have our next meeting so we can potentially discuss the future meeting that we're going to have about the next meeting. I've been in that situation. It is so freaking true. And it's like, good Lord, you open up a meeting by talking about the last meeting you have, and then you might discuss something kind of sort of maybe new, and then you close the meeting by talking about the next meeting that you're gonna have. It's freaking ridiculous. And then if you have a presentation that you need to do in that meeting, you've got to have a meeting to discuss your presentation before you go into the meeting where you're actually gonna give the presentation. And this is all done, like once you start scaling up to a certain point, it goes from people doing their jobs to people having to talk about doing their jobs. And every single time you expand to a certain output or to a certain level of personnel, you get to this point. And I really think that the two things that he said here, which was the wicked problem and just having a crap ton of people on staff, kind of work against each other in a way that nobody really probably intended for and isn't intending for. That's why, I mean, this guy obviously worked on some of the what people consider to be the best Assassin's Creed games. That's wild. That is absolutely wild. I didn't know what I was going to get when I pulled up this interview. I could read the whole interview, but as time is limited, I think what I'll do is I'll leave it down in the description below for everybody to read so you guys can check it out. What do you guys think about the games industry going back to smaller teams? I mean, I think Expedition 33, if you guys have played that game, I am the type, I will fight anybody who's like, it's not that good of a game. No, it is that good of a game. It is that good of a game. It is. It is absolutely fantastic. Expedition 33 was done with 33 people, under $10 million, absolutely swept the Game Awards to the point. And here's what people need to understand about the Game Awards, because I get some people like, I don't even care about the Game Awards. Here's why it's important. You had a small team with a low budget that won over the journalists, and the journalists even voted the same way that the gamers were going to do. When the journalists vote against the big AAA guys, because they get all that access, they get access, they are the access media. When the access media votes for the little guy en masse like that, people need to pay attention, because it makes it easier for the journalists and the people and the mass media to do it again. And I think that that's very important. And especially with technology advancing to a point where we can get these smaller teams, I think a lot of games are going to come out in the future with much smaller teams. They're going to be tighter. They're going to be succinct. And I genuinely believe we're going to start seeing a lot of fantastic games. I mean, it's already kind of started. It's already kind of started. I mean, there were a bunch of decent games last year. Go all the way from indie solo guys to small, what I like to call single A games. That's how I refer to Expedition 33 as a single A game, because they were not indie. They did take money from Kepler to finish their game, which makes them not indie, but I would say that they're single A because they had a low budget. And I mean, you had Silksong, you had Expedition 33, you had, how many indie games? You had Schedule 1 last year was another big one. There were a few others last year that actually really resonated with a lot of people that I just can't bring up to the top of my mind. But I definitely think, I think we're headed in a good direction with this. I really do. I think the tools are there. I think the passion is there, because I think a lot of people that lived through this last like 10 to 12 years of gaming is kind of tired of the crap that we've been getting. And a lot of people are saying we don't need AAA price tags. And not only that, we don't want to pay for that AAA price tag. Give us a game that looks good enough and we'll pay 40, 50 bucks for it. And guess what? A game that looks good enough doesn't need 400 people working on it. It might only need 30 people. And that's where I think the industry is going to head. We're going to get independent teams or small teams again working on passion projects, and every time you get, well, not every time, but a lot of times when those passion projects actually come to fruition, they come out absolute bangers, and they do solve for the things like the wicked problem mentioned here, and they do learn a lot. So let me know, what do you guys think about just everything said in this interview, in the short portion of the interview that I read? I'd really love to hear from you guys in the chat right now, and also in the comments down below in the VOD when I upload this to YouTube. So what say you, chat?